Mediocre Disc Golf Podcast, an average podcast for the average disc golfer. As always, I'm Evan Anstutz, joined by Kim Hatcher. We're happy you could join us. Kim, how are you doing today?
Super pumped, ready to go. I'm super excited for our guest today. I am excited just to hear the way she thinks, the way her thoughts go, and her mindset. I'm just overall very excited.
Yeah, we've got a really awesome guest lined up for you. Talked about it, like hinted at it with a couple of people that I met at Throwdown, ran into a couple of listeners, indoctrinated some listeners. Indoctrinated is probably not the right word, but that's what I'm sticking with.
I think I like it. I think we should keep going with it.
Shout out Sean Haskin. Met him in the first round during a one of the notorious Throwdown backups. And when I played with him on Sunday, he's like, dude, awesome podcast. Listen to it. You guys are great. It's like, awesome. So also managed to accidentally do a little bit of advertising for the podcast.
Nice. Big fan.
I threw in for birdie on the last hole of the tournament. And it's like everyone, when I got up to the top, because for those who don't know, throw down the last hole, you throw way down into the valley and then back up like probably 60, 70 feet.
On the high hill.
On the high hill.
Because there's two hills. Like I know MA2 weekend, I think it was on the left hill.
Yeah.
Which is shorter. It's like 50 feet, maybe?
Yeah, it's still not
maybe
an easy shot, but it's not nearly as daunting
as the right hill.
Yeah. So everyone, when I got up the hill, thought I threw in for eagle, but I had to inform them, no, I threw in for birdie. I threw out of bounds. But there's a lot of people like, Mediocre Disc Golf Podcast, awesome. Like, way to make a throw in as mediocre as possible. Like,
just rips off the shirt, duck tattooed on the back. Just, yeah,
quack, quack,
quack, quack.
But Throwdown was an awesome tournament. It's really cool to play. Like, I'd say 85-90% of the pro layout for Throwdown. That's what the MA1 weekend was. And boy, is it a brutal course.
I bet. Josh would let me know when he was teeing off, and he was finishing, and I was looking outside. I was like, it's dark outside, and I have not gotten a text that he's finished yet. It is dark. I think they said about 4.5 hours they were averaging out there.
Yeah, I think the closest to the lead card, I was like fifth to last group out. And we were at one point like, man, are we going to finish? Oh, crap. There's 4 other groups behind us. Are they going to finish?
Wild.
But it's a long round. I think there were some issues with people in certain divisions that couldn't keep up with pace of play, weren't good. They didn't have the skills to attack that course the way it needed to be attacked. And so that combined with some older guys just generally playing slow, it resulted in a lot of backups.
What division was playing? It was MA1,
MA40,
MP. Was MA40?
MA40, MA50, MP50, MP60.
I don't mean to be rude, but like that's a lot.
Yeah,
on the pro layout. Like it's basically a pro layout.
I looked at thing, it's like all but 3 holes are the pro layout, and
basically pro layout.
And one of those holes on the pro layout that we don't play, we just have split into 2 holes. And so you're still playing that distance. You're just not playing it all as one hole. So that it's interesting. I think I can take away some of the stuff from this weekend and ask our guest about it as far as course design, because she's very outspoken about course design for the FPO field. So that will be, I think, an interesting conversation. But
yeah, I definitely agree.
Kim, I saw you posted about one of your new disc shop discs. What'd you get?
Yes, I got me a Venom. So anybody who knows my bag, I am a sucker for yellow discs, gold stamps, or anything floral, flowery. Yep, girl over here, new girl co-host. And I got a pink Venom with this awesome flower gold foil. Looks great, and it feels so good in the hand. Like I have the test flight, and it's definitely a little different I would say almost exactly the same, but it's definitely a little different. It fits a little bit better in my hand. And I was throwing it pretty well. Honestly, it's not like a beefy meat hook. It flies pretty straight for a while and then it hooks hard. So I I don't want to say it, but I want to say it's kind of it feels like they're trying to make a Halo destroyer. Like,
Interesting.
and I like it. And I think that's good. I mean, AB throws it. AB throws mostly Venoms.
Hmm.
A lot of the people are starting to throw a lot of Venoms. It has the torque, like a force is a 0-3, but I can sometimes flip a force. And I don't think I should be flipping a 0-3 disc. A 12, was it a 12? Yeah, it's a 12.
Yeah, 12 is force is a 12.
Yeah. So I think this is their take at trying to make a beefier disc, but that's not just the plastic, that's actually like the disc. So I like it. It immediately went to my bag. I took out my Evans signature series.
Ah, boo.
So it definitely went in my bag. I love it. And I got it from the disc shop, and the guys are awesome. They always post the picture of what disc so that way I can be picky.
Hmm.
So make sure I get the one I want.
Yeah, and you can get yourself a Venom at the disc shop using our code MDGPod and get 10% off.
Because
So
if it's on sale, it feels better.
it feels free.
It
It
feels
might as well
free.
be free. So
Feels
go use your
free.
code MDGPod. There's also going to be a Berg restock on the day this comes out. And check out our Instagram for a giveaway. It's going to be a Ballista Pro this month.
What? I think I have
So
a Ballista Pro from, I think I got it in a trilogy challenge thing.
I also got one from Chain Hawk Open. Maybe that's where you got yours from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Oh, yeah, those are Ballista Pros. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got like two of them. I, we've got like a stack on the ground that needs to be like put up behind me. And I actually remember seeing that one today. I was like, what is that disc?
Yeah. It's it's a beefy disc. Maybe not as quite as beefy as the Venom, but we will be giving away Ballista Pro. So keep an eye out on our Instagram for that.
Keep an eye out.
All right. Do you want to move into the new fan favorite segment? It's only been 1 week, and that was like the number one feedback that I was getting while I was at Throwdown is Hoffy's heaters. Incredible. Ready for
I'm
it?
in. I'm in. Hit me with the heater.
Yeah. For those who are new to the show, uh, Hoffy's heaters is brought to you by Spike Heiser Disc. This is where our social media manager, Matt Hoffman, gives his hot takes on things no one else is talking about. Might be for a good reason. So let's hear what he has to say this week.
My hot take this week is food on the disc golf course. And I know there are two sides to this argument. Are you a jerky person or are you a candy person? And I'm here to say I think it's okay to be both, but you got to pick a side, especially in the winter, because jerky on a winter day feels great. It's exactly what I want. But also, I do not want a hot piece of jerky in the middle of July. And I'm going to lose my shit if I see any person offer me jerky on a July afternoon where it's 95 degrees in Florida. And it's not my thing. But on the other hand, I also don't want hot gummies at like 4:30 in the afternoon when I've been sweating my ass off playing disc golf all day. So I think we need to find a better snack. And I think I have the best option for both occasions, whether it be moderately cold to it being aggressively hot out. And I think that idea is the Uncrustable peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because you can freeze it, stick it in your bag, you got a couple of hours playing, and it's perfectly thawed out by the time you're playing. Now, the other hand is you can stick it in the fridge and it'll stay nice and cool in the wintertime. And I think that with the great combination of protein from the peanut butter, sweetness from the jelly, it might be the greatest thing ever invented for the disc golf course, and I will die on this hill. So what I'm saying with that is you need to have an Uncrustable peanut butter and jelly sandwich in your bag at all times. I will die on this hill.
All right, unpopular opinion. I don't like eating leather. I don't like leather. I don't like jerky. I think it's gross. I hate it so much. So
That's fair. It took me a long time to appreciate jerky, and now I really enjoy some jerky. It's great for the disc golf course because you don't have to keep it refrigerated, and it is a good protein kick. Gets you a little
Yeah,
But
you're not convincing me. I
I get it. I get it. I'm also a
candy.
candy person.
I am and I'm not. I'm really picky. I know, surprising. A girl is picky. I'm really picky. I like my lifesavers, and when I'm on the disc golf course, I always get the collisions, which is like the lifesavers. It's like lemonade.
Ooh.
Like those are the best.
Mhm.
And you got to be careful with those because they leave a wax coating on your fingers. So you got to use your left hand. Yep, you got to remember those things. My
Yep.
dad taught me that. He used to be a pro bowler. You have to
Mhm.
use your left hand when you're eating.
Mhm.
So I feel that, but like I don't bring candy around that often. He's got a point with the PB&J. When I used to play softball, I used to keep Encrustables in my catcher's bag, not like deep, like we wouldn't keep there for days, but like in the morning, I put the frozen Encrustable like in the pocket, like where I keep just like cell phone, headphones, that kind of stuff. And by lunchtime, they were perfect. He's got a point.
Yeah, he might. It's not necessarily the most allergy friendly option, but definitely definitely a good thought. I never really thought about it like that. I really try to keep it quick and simple, like 1, 2 pieces of jerky. I'm also the nerd clusters. Those are my go-to things.
Yes.
My bag has a little like mesh pouch that's perfect for the little candy thing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
your new what's it called? What's it called? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. AGL bag.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
The AGL Yellowstone. And it's supposed to be for towels, but I discovered this weekend during a backup, I'm like, okay, just keep cramming this candy all the way down. I have to dig it back out. And sometimes you just need that quick hit of sugar. And
Quick hit. Just hit it one
mhm.
time.
And it was great. So might have to try out the peanut butter jelly. I never thought about freezing it during the summer.
Well, you're supposed to keep it in the freezer. You didn't know that?
I kept them in the fridge.
Well, you buy them in the freezer aisle.
I don't appreciate your logic.
It's so when you buy ice cream for Morgan, do you put that in the fridge when you bring it home?
In the pantry, actually. Right in the oven.
Right in the oven. We're cooking it up. Oh my goodness. You keep it in the freezer and that way, yeah.
Okay. All right. Noted.
Because if you leave it in the fridge, it gets stale.
Okay.
Right, it gets stale. So you leave it in the
They don't last that long
freezer.
at my house, so
Honestly, I have not thought about that. Like, honestly, like I feel like a memory has popped up. Like, I used to do that all the time in my catcher's bag because you couldn't bring food into the facility. But if you put it in your catcher's bag, no one's opening your catcher's bag. So that's how you
I
snuck food
thought you were
in.
going to go down the doesn't count as food route, but fair enough.
Doesn't count as food if I put it near my shin guards.
Well, that was quite a heater. And if you want a disc that is an absolute heater, go check out Spike Heiser Dyes. Brandon is creating amazing dyes for everyone to enjoy. You can check him out on Instagram at shdyes_DG and see what he has to offer in the shop or request something custom. Spike Heiser Dyes, excellence by design.
Even if you don't like dye disc, you can always appreciate it by giving him a good follow. Like, just check it
Yeah.
out. Just something to scroll by, something to give a like to every once in a while. You don't gotta buy it. It's just an Instagram follow.
Yeah. I mean, some of his stuff is just incredible.
Sick.
I don't know how he does it. I'll have to bring him on at some point to talk about
Yes.
dyeing and how he got into it because
I would love that. You look at some dyes and you're like, oh, okay, that's easy. Like the bubble dyes, is that what's called bubble?
the cell dyeing.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff. Honestly, I'm like, I can figure that out. Like it kind of looks a little easy, but like there's some things you're like, how the heck did you do that?
Yeah, it's ridiculously impressive. He's so creative as well. He's got so many different styles and designs. Go check it out for yourself. I think a audio podcast is not the best format to describe how incredible his stuff is. So go check it out.
Yeah, if you're in the car right now, we're all holding up. I've got 5 discs in one hand. Evan's got 3 discs in his hand. Like we're all holding up the discs right now.
Well, I think we've gotten everything out of the way. Why don't we jump into this week's interview? This week, we're excited to have on Sarah Hokom. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
For those for those coming in, we had already been talking for a little bit. We were talking about Buc-ee's. You're currently in Houston for Texas State, right? That's this weekend?
That's correct. The Silver Series, part of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. We are playing out at Brock Disc Golf Course.
Okay, so it's not not in Tyler this year, not at that wooded course.
No, so Tyler is up north, closer to Dallas, but not really close to Dallas. It's east of Dallas, a couple hours.
Okay.
But we're not playing the Thorn this year. So Texas State has traditionally rotated all over the state.
Oh, I didn't know
so,
that. Okay.
So Dallas hosted it for 2 years, which their version of that was out at Tyler, at Dogwood, which was two years ago, and then the Thorn last year, and then now it goes down to Houston. So we're out at Brock Park, which has 3 separate courses on it, and the men are playing the gold layout. The women are playing a modified layout for 3 rounds each.
Okay. Are you guys? So it's 3 different courses.
There's 3 different courses on the property, but each of our divisions, at least as far as the male and the female MPO, FPO, they are not playing the same course, but they're playing the same course. They're playing different courses, but the same course each round.
Gotcha.
Okay. Interesting. So you're touching on courses, and like we could already jump into the main topic of conversation, but I really want to hear how you got into the sport and what made you into the person you are today, road warrior, right? Tour life, all that sort of stuff.
How much time do we have?
As much time as you want.
Yeah, so some just friends got me into it, just like a lot of people. I think just a friend that played was like, hey, come play, and I'm like, cool, let's go play. And then this same friend hit an ace on the 7th hole off of a tree, like ricocheted like off a tree that was like inside the circle, and went in the chain for an ace. And that was kind of like, whoa, holy cow. And then I sucked at first, like everybody.
Yep.
Did you try to throw backhands? Okay, yeah.
I tried to throw both ways, backhands and sidearms. Like I was not good at either. But I was having fun at it, and I met some locals out there who invited me to play like a doubles league. So me and one of my friends decided like, okay, let's go play doubles together. So we played, and then I was still pretty bad, and so I started going out every day after that. And I also meeting up with that same group that had invited me originally to play the doubles. It was just like, just a real eclectic group of folks, the Ridge Runners out at Quail Ridge. What up, G Flap? Shanks, Timmy Shanks. We all had nicknames. I was the Hatchet.
Hatchet. I like it. I like it. I might steal that. My new last name is Hatcher. I might steal that. The Hatchet.
Yeah, I mean, you could try.
You could try.
Also, no good nickname is ever. You never assign that to yourself.
I can do that.
Right?
I've got enough confidence. I can do it. But I'll just put an asterisk that says from Sarah, like, yeah, okay. Assigned by Kim, but Sarah said I could if I can. So, Sarah, how long have you been in the game? Like,
all the power to you.
Yeah. How long have you been in the game?
2007 is when I first picked up a disc.
2007. Okay, so.
And I was like, yeah, mid-20s or so, early mid-20s at that time. I had gotten out of college. I had a regular job. I had a house and dogs.
All of the traditional family life of the suburbia.
Exactly.
When did you?
And then, yeah.
When did you like start transitioning? Not transitioning, I guess you could say. When did you start becoming interested in course layout and everything? I heard you were speaking of the DGPT, I think it was a conference, if I could say conference, but talking about FPO course design and just course design in general. When did that start becoming a thing for you?
It probably started right when the Pro Tour started, or maybe a few years before the Pro Tour, when Steve Dodge started adding women's tees to some of his holes out at Maple Hill. He needed to extend some of the holes for the men because they were just scoring. Everybody was getting birdies on them. But the places he could extend them to were outside the range for the FPO field at the time. So he was like, well, I can't, like, I need to make this hole longer, but I can't ask the women to throw a 320 water carry right now, you know, because I mean, this is back in 2012, 2013, maybe. And that was way too much. And even now, like, I still only say that, you know, we should only be asking like 280, 290 water carries at this point. So anyway, so he was like, okay, well, we can leave the women on this other tee, this original tee, and we can push the men back into this other tee. And then so they did that on just this one hole, hole 8. Hello, 8 holes. We love you. Hole 8 was the one. And yeah, so we threw from the other tee and the men threw from that tee. And then all of a sudden we had a slightly different rating, which was one of the first times we ever had different ratings than the men, that we were propagated only within one another, rather than also it propagated with the men on the same course layout as they were playing. And that was also eye-opening. Most of the time I had noticed the women play in the morning, play the exact same layout as the men. Our scores would come in, our ratings would come in, and then as the men would trickle in, our ratings would tank.
Yep.
They just go down and down and down because the men were playing it so much better than we were playing it. They were getting so many more birdies. So our, you know, I mean, but if it had just been left with us as our own propagators, we would have had a higher rating on that course. And that proved to be true when it came to just changing that one hole that they needed to lengthen for the men. Leaving us there gave us our own propagators and better ratings. So that was kind of the beginning of it for me. And the wheels started turning a little bit. And I'm like, well, there's a bunch of holes out here that, you know, they need to make longer for the men, and they could make, you know, they could make better for us. And now we're kind of like, and so that was kind of the beginning of it. And, you know, that's kind of the thing that we're still struggling with, though, I think, is that people don't want to give up the fact that we can have different, like, they want us to have some shared tees. And that's the thing I think we just need to let go of. Because
I don't
disagree, like, just like back in the day, like, when, I mean, and there's some situations it's fine, but the shared tees, like, a really, like, okay, there are some situations which I will discuss in a second if I don't get sidetracked, but let me tell this part of it, which is, it's unfortunate too often, like, and it just happened this last weekend out at Harvey Penick, is that there were some holes where they had the same shared tee as the men, and we ended up throwing, like, most of us are throwing at the edge of our distance range to try to get to this birdie, and the men are throwing fairways and mids to get there. So it's not too short for the men. Like, most of them aren't going to throw a putter, you know, so they're throwing either, it's like maybe right between a mid and a fairway, maybe a touch shot for them, and then it's not too far for the women because we can still get there with a distance driver. You know, that kind of hole, it's a crappy hole, because the men just scored maybe a little bit too often on it, and then the women are only just getting it just ever so often.
Yeah.
You know, so we're getting it, we're getting looks at it, you know, we're getting C2 looks at it, but, you know, just there's not enough cashing in on those. And so, you know, they're just a low amount of birdies, and course designers keep wanting to leave these holes in there that, like, they're between like 330 and 380. And they think that, like, oh yeah, this will be great, I don't even have to make another women's tee because, you know, the women can get to this one. And yeah, like 5 or 6 of them can get to it all the time. Maybe they won't, though. And then, you know, the rest of us can get C2 looks, or, you know, it's not too far, but it's not a good hole still.
Yeah, like,
you
if
know, it's still not a good hole just because we can get to it.
Like, if the men are getting, I wouldn't say a break, but if the men are getting a hole where they don't have to throw a distance driver, why aren't us ladies getting the same treatment? Why aren't we getting a hole where we don't have to throw our distance driver?
Yeah, it's also interesting because that hole isn't really a score separator, because for 90% of the field, you're sitting there, everyone's throwing distance drivers, 10% of the field's getting there, maybe a couple of people hit a really long putt, and then from there, everybody else generally is going to be making par.
The real important part is, I'm not like, as we kind of talk about this a little bit, like, those holes where people, like, those in between holes where it's like a completely different hole for the men and the women, like, those holes need to go. We can do better than that. Like, let's give us a comparable hole. If the men are choosing between a mid and a fairway, then the women should be choosing between a mid and a fairway, which isn't 350.
No.
That's 220, 300, something like that. 290, something like that. That's the range where you're deciding whether you're going to throw a mid or a fairway. And and you're leaving that birdie available for the whole field. We saw, I think there was like 3, maybe 4 holes out at Harvey Penick that played that way. They're just a little out of range, and people got them, but not enough frequency that it's appropriate. And I think that's the part that I think people like miss the boat on when they really don't like this idea. Is like, we're trying to have a similar birdie rate as the men have, right? Like that's the idea. The men's game is engaging online as a viewer, because you're watching people get birdies and pars and sometimes bogeys, but you're watching people get birdies and pars a lot more often birdies, especially when you're looking at the top cards of the men. But then when you look at the women, you get we're getting a lot more pars. Some holes nobody's getting a birdie, or they're getting, one person is getting 1 birdie in one of the rounds, which may not even be on film, and the whole card's getting pars on a bunch of these holes, which are really good scores for that hole for the FPO field. But it doesn't look impressive from a viewership standpoint. So my big push now is like, when course designers say that, like, hey, that's a good hole, I'm like, well, look about how the viewership is looking at that hole. Like, are they engaged in this hole? Is this a good hole to be watching? Because if most of the players are getting the same score, it's not about whether someone could get this birdie or not. It's about whether they are. So like the data tells us that information, and we need the scoring to be similar to what's happening in the male side of things. Until that happens, like, stop making the courses longer, straight up. Stop increasing the difficulty, and until the internet like has decided and come down on the course designers and said, hey, the women are getting too many birdies, it's boring. Like, when do we ever hear that? Like we hear it on the men, like the Memorial, when the guys are just throwing spike hyzers and just birdieing every hole, which is interesting to its own right, like, for real. But like, that course has kind of lost its fanfare because it's just too easy, right? It's definitely not too easy for the women. It's pretty challenging.
It's a tougher,
on that side of things. But until that is the answer, until that's what the viewership is saying, they're saying, hey, like the course is way too easy. Like, I don't really like it when, Paige and Kristen can get a 16 under. That's way too easy. We need to make that course harder. Put the women on a real course. 16 under is too good. Like, we barely get to double digits on almost every course we play. We rarely see double digits, right? We see them, but like, it's like these pop-off rounds.
Yeah.
We don't see no 18 downs. We're not seeing, even, people in their prime in this day and age are still, on the women's side, are not shooting even close to 16, 17, 8 perfect rounds. We're not seeing those. So like, until we start seeing too many birdies, like, stop lengthening the courses. Let the men go off and do it. Like, it is too easy for them. Quit letting our T-pad situation hold you back from making make the courses longer for the men. Make it harder. Make sure Paul McBeth can't shoot that 18 under or whatever. Like, that's fine. Like, but we're not doing that. So stop like dragging us along for the ride when we're not there. Like, we're doing really good where we're at. And one of the things that I also want people to understand is that the data, what I've seen, is showing that the viewership is good when we have a really good course design, when we have really good production crews, and we have a really talented field. The Throw Pink Championships last year had only 10% less concurrent viewers than the USDGC at the same time, right? So it's a really good engaging course. It's a really good production crew, and the field is extremely strong. And that same thing, like with the men, like, we were able to almost keep up with the numbers with the men when we have those 3 things. And what we're missing in so many of the courses that we're playing is that third element, which is course design. We're not getting enough birdies, and quit putting the onus on the women to like, you need to practice more, you need to get better. Yeah, we all do. We all are doing our absolute best to get better. Like, don't you worry, like, the training is happening, and it's easy to be like kind of an armchair expert when you aren't out here grinding it out every week, doing your best to be the best you can be. But I assure you that that is actually happening in every way, shape, or form that it can happen, just in case y'all are questioning it or worried about that. So like, it's not like, it's the course design. Like it's got to be there to highlight what the women can do and give us a chance to show an exciting situation. Like Waco is exciting because most of the players in the field can birdie almost every hole, right? I mean, we've seen this. Like when we get to these events where like only a few of the players have access to all the birdies, it's going to be a blowout. Somebody's
Yeah, it's not fun.
when you have a course that only a portion of the field can get to for distance wise, then it's just not going to be engaging. You're not going to have the parity in the field. There's only going to be some players that can win that tournament. Like and you know, we're seeing it in the men's field over the last couple of weeks, especially at Waco. You know, the like they're talking about how short that course is, and well, in the last day 15 people could win that tournament, and I couldn't keep my eyes off the TV.
That was
So you know,
amazing.
right, and that's what we want, right? Like that is engaging sports, especially with your you know your favorite activity as the main stage.
I honestly, I had written down some questions, and one of my questions was going to be just about like where's the line between changing the courses up, but you've answered that, and I've never thought about it before. I'm a big proponent of like I always play with guys, so I don't mind being compared to guys, but you're definitely right. If the guys are throwing mids and fairways on a hole, from our pad, we should be throwing mids and fairways on a hole. Like
Yeah,
that's
like
such a great point.
Maybe the super distance player will like even get to club all the way down to a putter, and then like the ones who have good distance are playing mids, and then people who don't throw quite as far have to throw a fairway, and some of the short throwers maybe they have to throw a distance driver to try to get that far.
I've never thought about it like that before, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, especially because in disc golf, and I know this has been a conversation on the pro tour on the MPO side, is there's an art that's kind of being lost with the mids and fairways, and to deny the women to be able to do that on the same course is something that I never really thought about, because like you're saying, if playing the same tees, you're going to be throwing a distance driver when the men are throwing uh the fairways and mids, which is it's also with control, it's a different course at that point because they can control the hell out of mid or fairway, and you're having to get after a driver.
Yeah, and I mean the concept of attackable holes also, it's not just, I mean the pro side is kind of the most, I think it's the one of the easiest ways to look at it on the pro side because we have great data, right? We get to see how many people are actually getting into circle 2 in regulation or circle 1 in regulation, how many fairway hits we're getting, how many strokes we're losing to putting versus we're losing to driving. You know, we can really parse all of that out on the pro scene because of UDisc on very well established courses. So that stuff is really good. But this problem is not just a pro thing. It's actually probably even more and fundamentally more an issue at the amateur, especially the junior and age protected levels, where we have people who are throwing maximum 150, 200 feet, playing holes that are 600 feet. You know, like it is demoralizing for a 9-year-old girl to go out and try to play a normal course. Like unless she's got a really strong backbone and a really supportive group, and maybe she's blind because she can see she's taking a 7 when everybody else is taking a 2, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like she needs to feel that kind of success at a level that's appropriate for a distance that someone of her skill and age would throw. Same thing for, you know, older women. You know, we're asking these like these 60-year-old women to go out and play these par 65 8,000 foot courses, and they're taking, you know, 6s and 7s, and they're scoring 85 90 100 shots. Like they just threw the disc as far as they could at least 70 times. How often do you go out to a field and throw as far as you can 70 times?
No, I don't.
Like they're literally throwing as far as they can 70 times. Like when I play disc golf, I'm only throwing as far as I possibly can, like a dozen times, maybe 15, maybe 20, not 70. Like we're asking them to do that. The same thing with a little girl or a little boy. Like we're asking them to like throw distance drivers over and over and over again because we're not giving them courses that fit their skill. Same thing like when I first started as a pro, because we played, there was no such thing as women's tees way back then. And we played all the same tees as the guys, and it was like who can get the most pars. That was like, you're gonna win if you end up par. Whoo, you're killing it. But also I would run into women who had no fairway game. They don't even have a mid in their bag. Like
That's
literally
wild.
their one shot is this is my shot that I throw far. This is the shot that I throw when I have to throw off the tee, because I have to throw, because every time I throw the disc, there's nothing in my way, and it's far, and there's any obstacles are farther than I can throw. All the
Wow.
pinch points are far, all the holes are farther than I can throw, so I just throw as far as I can every shot. You know, like it's like it just ruins, like, not ruins, it doesn't really allow a player to like develop the skills that make this game so interesting and fun, just because everything just stretched out too far.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, talking about long courses, I feel like I've seen you make some comments about the Emporia courses. Is that right? Like, are you a big fan? I feel like you're not
Yeah.
a big fan of those courses at all.
Yeah, they're just too big for my arm, for sure. You know, you have to be able to throw, like, you know, the landing point. I feel like all the landing zones are at like 360, 370, and the pinch points are like 320. You know, so if you throw short, not only are you not getting to the landing zone, but you're also bringing more OB into play.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So it's extra penalizing for a short throw, and like, you know, rather than, in my opinion, I should, you know, the average throw should be kind of the landing zone, and the pinch point should be if you are a farther thrower and you want to try to make your second shot, you know, like on a par 4 or par 5, assuming you want to make that the second shot a little bit easier, or you want to put yourself in a better position for your game, like you might go for this other shot because you have that extra distance. But it's going to be a risk reward situation where if you miss it, it's going to cost you. Or you can throw a much easier shot to the landing zone that everybody else is throwing to. And then you have the same shot that everyone else has, but maybe also with a slower disc. So that's the kind of golf that I see when it comes to risk reward. And Emporia, for me, just continues to like fail at accomplishing that type of golf that makes sense for a player that throws 320.
Yeah, and the landing zone stuff is interesting as well, because I really I really enjoy course design and course architecture, and something that I think gets overlooked is just moving a tee forward or back doesn't change how the hole can be played, because if it's a par 4 and you change the tee, yeah, the shot to the landing zone is shorter or farther, but especially with what we've been talking about, like if the approach shot is still 380 from the general accepted landing zone, you're still asking the women to do a lot.
Yeah, you are asking them.
Is that something that you have seen start to improve, or is that like the kind of next frontier?
I think there's a lot of people thinking more about it now. I think right now we're still kind of getting this weird push towards like trying to design for the future of FPO rather designing for the now. You know, they're like, oh, the next generation, they're throwing so much farther. And I think the course designers get kind of sucked into what the lead card looks like and the distances that the lead card is throwing. But then they are failing to recognize that that's such so much smaller of a subset of how the course plays for the majority of the field, that it's like it just becomes discouraging to the rest of the field, because they have no really chance without playing perfect to even kind of sniff a podium on courses like that. So I think, you know, they're kind of designing for the future a bit and not like looking at the data, you know, in a way that allows them to create a course that, like I said, like offers us a situation where we're getting a similar scoring spread as the men. You know, I mean, that's what we want to see. Like the viewers expect what the men are bringing, and that's why it's engaging.
Yeah.
Right. They're engaging because of that drama. Because of the birdies and the bogeys. They're not engaged because of pars where nobody's really getting there. Everybody's trying to make a circle 2 putt. Nobody really makes one. Maybe somebody does. Yay. 10% or so is even less most of the time is the percentage that the C2 putt is made in FPO, right? So 1 in 10 times we're going to get this yay who. Otherwise, everybody's going to be laying up or throwing a boring approach, tapping out their 3 and moving on. 8 to 10% birdies is not engaging. It needs to be in the 20% range.
I definitely agree. Yep.
So until the courses start doing that, I mean, and the worst part is the women are the ones who get blamed for it not being, they're like, well, you just need to, practice putting more. You need to get better. You need to throw farther, and it's like, dude, everybody's doing the best that they possibly can right now. Like, if you don't think that, winning a major championship or becoming something big on the pro tour is a big enough motivator for these women to get out here and try to do the best that they possibly can. Like, I mean, that is exactly what they are doing. Like, so,
Yeah, and
it's
that's
easy.
really interesting that like the women are kind of getting blamed. Okay, this reminds me of when we went to Nature Coast Luau at Floral Park when the FA1 field played the long pads where the same distance that the MA1 field was. You were telling us that other than you, the rest of the FA1 field was really struggling because there are a lot of holes that you're throwing from out of bounds and you had to cross a path to get inbounds. And how your husband Josh and I were approaching it was it's a bad shot is what is required to not make it inbounds. Like, we're still throwing mids, we're still throwing fairways, kind of throw back to the earlier part of the conversation, but not even being able to make it wasn't even like a thought in our heads. We're throwing over the top of trees, we're throwing all sorts of stuff. Whereas most of your field is not even able to get it there, or really having to pump something to get it out there.
So, and here's a really important, like, I would love for this to, if we can both, all of us try to like get this out in like to other women and, TDs who have tried to do this and maybe had not the best feedback from other women. One of my biggest pushbacks about these ideas is often from women themselves. They feel as though they're being disrespected because they are not being allowed to play from the same tees as the men. They say, look, I can throw from the men's tees. I can throw from the longs. Why do you put me on the short tees?
Guilty over here.
there are women that, that, and you know what, and I can relate because, back in the day, for sure, I have felt those same kind of, I don't know, it's kind of an insecurity of sorts or something that causes us to really feel like we're being disrespected when we're put on a shorter layout. But in my opinion now, as I understand course design and I understand the game so much differently, it is the definition of respect when someone takes time to try to understand the game well enough to give you a tee that's appropriate for you to play the game of golf, so that you're not just throwing a distance driver as far as you can every time, and not having to think about risk reward, about whether maybe you should club down to a mid, maybe you should throw a fairway driver so that you don't skip out of bounds. But if the course isn't designed for you, then you're not going to get to play that kind of game. You're going to have to just throw as far as you can a bunch of times and then lay up putts and try to see who can manage the wind and stay in bounds the most. You're not going to get to play the same kind of golf, and that is what we want. So it is the definition of respect when someone, male or female, is trying to give you tee pads appropriate for your division. And if if you really don't get it, like, please, maybe we can talk. Like, hit me up on Facebook or whatever. Like, let's talk about it, because it is so important to understand that it is a respectful action.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example of that even happening on the men's side is I was at a tournament this weekend and we played in MA1 80-90% of the MPO layout, and unfortunately MA40 still played the same layout we did, and one of my buddies had no fun whatsoever because he was really struggling. Couldn't make par on a lot of holes just because of the distance, and he had as much fun as he possibly could, but it was hard to enjoy the actual disc golf portion of it. So it's not not even just a women thing. I think it's a focal point because of the FPO versus MPO on the Pro Tour. But I think we can do a lot better in course design overall in allowing people of all skill levels to enjoy different courses.
So here's a good example of like that I like to give as like a way to think about what we're looking for when it comes to course design and a person's ability to play, their skill set, and their motivation to continue to try to play, right? So this is like retention, like they're interested and they're interested in the game. We want to retain them as well. It's like video games have done it very, very well since basically the beginning, right? You have to go in a video game, you have to go through these levels and develop these skills in order to get through the next level to get to the next area. If I was playing a video game for the first time and I jumped to level 7, I would be very discouraged. I would give it up right away and I'd be like, this game sucks. But if I worked my way from the beginning through the levels, then I could get to level 7 and probably really enjoy that game. And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of folks that who are enticing into the game, we're not retaining them because we're throwing them into level 7, and they need to learn the skills through these other levels and have an environment, right? The game itself give them the opportunity to develop these base level skills without throwing them into the fire and expecting them to be motivated and interested in something that's way beyond their ability.
Yeah, my wife used to hate a course that I play up here all the time. And they recently put in short pads because it used to be white and blue and now they have a red, white, and blue. And she played it for the first time. And Kim, she called you immediately after, like,
she did.
I got 2 birdies in a row. It was the coolest thing. And like, she's really into it now that she has some courses that she can actually go play.
It's a great point. I never thought about that.
Think about the number of women that have just stuck it out, or even just beginner players that maybe just haven't figured out how to really get a lot of power yet. Think about how badass they are for sticking it out and dealing with life in like bogey land all the time. Like, like sticking it out on these huge courses, and they're so excited to get 2 birdies in a row. Like that's the environment we're giving to these folks. That like 2 birdies in a row is just like this huge thing. Like, I just feel like we've done such a disservice, or that's just like not a disservice, but I won't go in the negative route. I'll try not to go the negative route, but just like, man, there's so much more we could do for that type of a player to really like just give them the proper tools and support to like develop every bit of the skills, even if they don't throw, 400 feet or 300 feet. Like, it's okay if your max distance is 220. Like, we've got courses for you that are fun, where you can get, you get to throw maybe a fairway and a mid and not just your distance driver all the time.
This is so awesome. I really have never thought about it like this. I got to admit, guilty as charged. I am somebody who wants to be compared to the men. And like, I don't mind it, I guess I could say, more than anything. But really thinking about it, like, yeah, why are we being compared against the men? Because we are different and we are throwing different distances. We have different shots. And that was such an awesome way to think about it. I mean, Evan, you mentioned Morgan, your wife. My mom just got into it. She's athletic to a point. I love her. But she goes out and she plays the red tees at Markham down in South Florida, and she has the blast. She texts me whenever she gets a par. She's so excited. And just recently, she got her first birdie on a hole. And she was so excited. And she starts going, maybe I'll play white pads. And then she was like, no, I won't play white pads. I won't play white pads. Like she's finally getting those birdies and she's enjoying the game. It's like, why aren't we doing that with our competitive lower levels, younger divisions, or even our age protected? Why aren't we giving them that feeling of, heck yeah, I just birdied this hole? Why are we giving them I really fought for that par on this 430-foot hole? Like, that's an amazing point.
Yeah. And And also an interesting observation, you were talking about like whether you want to be comparing yourself to the men or not. And can be kind of a bit of, sometimes you want to like this like little competitive drive, like you want to see really where you do stack up with the men. I totally understand that. But also we are like so much different. In my observation, I can play head to head against a male who is my same rating, like 960 rated, right? So he's going to be, mid to upper level MA1. And man, I'll play against this person and we will be playing such a different game.
Yes,
like
different games. Yes.
They'll be throwing, I'll be playing for par on holes I can't quite get to. They'll be taking a risk trying to get to those holes. Maybe their short game, they're not as accurate on their approach shots. Maybe they lose a couple strokes because they try to make a big, a 70 footer and they miss too far away and they can't make their comeback, or something that rarely happens to me, right? Or they throw it out of bounds a couple of times because they try to go for these shots that I don't even have in my wheelhouse. So I just throw it up the fairway, and it is interesting sometimes to compare yourself to that situation. And I think that, in all good fun, it's fine. But when we're talking about like comparing like elites with elites, like it's very telling, that it's not just a rating thing. And when we talk about like, some people want to just go to a ratings based field and take completely like take sex based classifications completely out. And I just feel like that's completely
no.
It's denying so much biology and so much information that we already have, that like it would be totally inappropriate for males and females of the same rating to play together, especially at the elite level, at a professional level. Like it just would not make any sense. Like it would be impossible to have course design that would properly challenge the field, because the field is going to be so varied in how they play the game. And also if we did something like that, obviously it would take female sports completely out of commission. There would not be females who played sports for a living.
100%. I completely agree with that. Playing with ladies is completely different than playing on a card with guys. It's completely different. The atmosphere is different. I'm a huge proponent of ladies only tournaments.
And let's not pretend like, women's only events. One of the biggest ways that you can make yourself like to improve your women's event is to do things almost completely different than you would for a regular event. Like the women want different things, like, and it's okay. It's okay. Like, I know that if like a male goes to create a women's event, he's going to make it as, he's going to make it how he thinks it should be. But unfortunately, like the women are going to think about that event in a completely different way. And that's how we would want it run, and it may not make sense to a male TD, and that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense because they're not coming from the same perspective.
How did you feel about this past weekend at the Open at Austin? Because I've heard a good amount of people saying like, thank goodness they really put FPO voices into it. It's scoreable. But then I looked at the scores and I didn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, you're right. You are correct about that. What I was told, and I'm not gonna I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here or anything, but what I was told was that, they recruited a few FBO voices, local. Some couldn't really take the time to do it because it was like maybe last minute. And that one that did take the time to do it, that the feedback was not none of the feedback was acted on. So that's my understanding of the FPO voice on Harvey Pennick. Now, they do have Evan from the Pro Tour. He works pretty hard on the FPO designs. He's pretty good at it. He's had a hand in it for a while, and I know that he works really hard at trying to understand FPO course design and make sure we have good stuff. But you're exactly right that the data showed that there was at least 6 or 7 holes that were just not good, not in range, and didn't produce enough score separation to be good holes.
It's just wild to think about for me. We spent this entire podcast going over it. one down first round was 1,011. One down. Like,
So this was it.
Gosh.
It was a bunch of those same holes that we kind of talked about. So like hole 3, it's 360, but it plays a tiny, like it plays a baby hyzer out of a tiny gap to a mounded green with like really deathy putts on the right side. So like it only got birdied a couple of times through the whole weekend. It's just, you know, we needed to be up like if we were up like 25 feet, it would have got birdied 20% of the time or more, right? It would have gotten more birdies, but we were back in the same tee as the men. If you look at the men's, I'm not sure what the men's data shows. I'm sure it shows that it's much better, but even a lot of the men couldn't get to this hole or didn't get this hole on the weekend because it's tricky, right? But the birdie rate was way too low for us. So hole 3 was way too low for us. Hole 6 was not good for either division. Hole 7 was not good for us. Hole 11 was not good for us. Hole 13 was not good for us. Hole 15 was not good for us.
Yeah, I'm looking at all the stats and there's not a ton of green.
Yeah, hole 16 it played as the easiest. Okay, here's the problem with this one. It played as the easiest birdie for us most of the days. But also the men played the same pad as we did, right? And they're getting eagles all day long on that hole. Like we played the same exact pad as like 550 or 560 or something at par 4. The landing zone is junk. It is, you know, the landing zone's like 280 and it's overhanging. It's overhanging, like the line goes right under all these overhanging branches that are way too low. And if you hit them at all, you're just going to get kicked into the OB. There's not a great place to land. And then you play over this entire huge OB part. Well, the men are going from eagles, but guess what? The women don't get an eagle opportunity. There's not an eagle opportunity on the whole course for us, but the men got a couple. Right?
That's a
like
good point.
if the men are getting an eagle on 16, then the women's pad should be like 450 away, not 550 away. You know, let our distance throwers try to get an eagle on this hole and let the rest of us throw and have a birdie opportunity, you know, just like the men. Like, why are we playing the same hole? Like, we should be playing, you know, the women should have an eagle opportunity on 16 too. So that's the kind of stuff. It's like, I don't mind. 18 was a little tough. 17 just kind of junky hole. Like, I don't know. I don't know how you fix that one. It's not that great. It just needs to be. I don't know. That one has a lot of problems. But 18, even though we didn't get birdied a lot, I do kind of still like it. I actually think that the tee should just we moved up like 20 feet because too many of the players. There's a green right in the landing zone, but there's a really nice place to approach the basket from the left of the green, but only the distance throwers could get to that position. And so everybody else could throw as far as they could, and they couldn't even get to the OB, right? And we really want that OB to come into play for more of the players. So if we move that, I mean, I was always like I was always just like 5 feet short of the green every time, right? So I don't even have to worry about it, but I should have to worry about it. You know, and the distance throwers should have an easier shot. They should probably be throwing a fairway to that same position to get themselves in position. So I think the tee on that should just move up like 20 feet and it would be a great hole, right? And that's kind of where I'm at with probably like all 6 or 7 of those holes that didn't get a lot of birdies. I mean, the tee pad they're outpacing us by just a few, like just 20, 30 feet. And if they would give us that extra 20, 30 feet, then more birdies would happen. The viewership would be more engaged. The parity in the event would be better at the coming down the stretch. It'd be more people who had a shot to win. You know, that's what we want. Like, we just need to quit extending it so much. Like, just it's really good in the 300 to 330 range. Quit putting us out in the 350 to 400 range. Like, that's not a good spot. Put a couple holes there, fine. I don't care. Or even better, make the par 4s and 5s. Make a couple of them where if you can throw that far, you're going to get a better look at something.
Yeah.
You know, but quit putting like landing zones there. Like, that's not working. It's not what we want. It's not. Maybe in 10 years, I don't know, but it's not working right now. So like just shorten up those landing zones, give us a chance to get the birdies, like make the viewership engaged, like quit having these like 80% par holes. Like, come on. And quit blaming us when you're giving us, crappy course design. They're like, oh, you need to get better. And we're like, well, maybe you should get better. Maybe the courses
got him.
should be better. Like, I mean, you can't turn shit into sugar no matter what you're doing.
Please put that on a shirt. Please. I need that on a shirt.
No matter who, I mean, even if Jomez is covering it, I mean, even if they're covering it, like they're the best we got, and we still have to have good course design.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's interesting to hear that people are saying, "Oh, the women need to get better." That tournament that I was at this past weekend, there was a hole that was listed as a par 4, and the general conversation across everyone you talk to is, "Why the hell is this a par 4? It needs to be a par 5." Everybody, no matter how far they could throw, was grumbling about it, and it sounds like that's exactly what y'all are experiencing on just about every course. At some point, of like, okay, best possible scenario is a par. It'd take an incredible shot for a birdie, and it's not exciting. No one's looking forward to that hole.
Well, I mean, you're looking forward to maybe having a shot to get it, but like you're just not getting it enough times for it to be engaging, because it's just not happening enough times for the viewership.
Yeah,
it does happen, and you hopefully, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the person on the lead card that gets it. Sometimes it's somebody at the bottom of the field that just throws a banger, right? Or throws a throw in, they're just like, I'm like, screw it, I'm going to try to make this, they're not even playing golf at that point. They're just trying to do cool stuff, like, it's not like, and then in the past, course designer be like, hey, but it got birdie twice. And you're like, that's not a good reason to keep this.
Just because they two girls threw it in from 150 feet doesn't mean it's getting too easy.
That's what happened on hole 6. That's what happened on hole 6. Like, Evelina got it the first day, and then I watched Missy get it the second day. I don't think anybody got it the third day. I don't even know. Probably not, but it was just, nobody could get close to it because it was such a weird angle and took more power than, even the men couldn't hardly get there. Like, the birdie rate on the men's side was ridiculous, and we're not even anywhere near that. Anyway.
This conversation has been fantastic. I, as a female, have learned so much about myself and how I feel. Like, Evan, how do you feel? Because I feel like this conversation has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been really eye-opening as far as the course design and just how it's not only the FPO players that are feeling this. It affects our junior divisions, our age protected divisions, our beginners. It's really a conversation for everybody. We can't just have every single course being an elite course and say, well, suck it up. You're taking 12 over par is going to be a really solid score for you. Hope you had fun.
Hope you had fun.
So check this out. I get asked by course, right? Jesus. I get asked by course designers like, oh, like you should come check out my course. Like, it's a championship level. Like, in fact, here's the funniest thing. Every time I go anywhere, at least a few people tell me, oh my gosh, you got to go check out fill in the blank course. It's 10,000 feet. It's amazing. It's so hard. Like, it's like the most challenging place in the area. And I'm like, okay.
That doesn't sound like fun.
I'm definitely not going there. Thank you. But until I have, a tournament on that course where I'm going to compete against the best in the world in the hardest conditions under, with money on the line, I'm not going to that course. You know where I'm going? I'm going to the 5,000 foot par 3 with the fun woods and the cool league and, the sweet vibe. Like, that's where I'm trying to go.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Casey White just did a video at one of the little outside of Austin. It's a pitch and putt. I think it's Armadillo or something.
Flying Armadillo.
Yeah. And he's like,
go to the Dillo.
So fun.
Go to the Dillo.
go to the Blockhouse. That's another one. There's a bunch more actually out there, and man, those are the two: the Dillo and the Blockhouse. The Blockhouse is my fave. That place is. Whew, they're just revamping it too, so hopefully it comes back out and it's like Anyway, that place is really amazing. It's in Virginia, by the way.
Virginia, gotcha.
But the armadillo, the flying armadillo is super fun. They've got a big 18-hole big course out there, but then they got an 18-hole like kind of pitch and putt tiki putter course that is super fun. I mean, you can play like a bunch of times, just run through it. That's the kind of place I'm trying to go on my off days, because that's like fun golf. Like, I'm not trying to go play all these like really, really hard courses when I'm doing that all day long. But also, when it comes from a business perspective, if you want to host a pro tour, yes, do need a championship level course. That's huge, right? But if you're trying to have any business at your course other than that 1 week that the pro tour is in town, you need a red course.
Yes. Yes.
Maple Hill is case in point. Maple Hill has their gold course, and people love that course. You throw over the water a million times, lose all your frisbees, beats you up by the end, but you're like, I did it. I did it. But makes all their money on the red course, where you don't throw over any water at any point. And that's where all their money is made as a they don't make their money on the gold course. They make their money on the red course. So if you're a big corporate person looking to like do this disc golf private thing, like, sure, fine to have the gold course, but the red course, the white course, the blue course, that's what, the average disc golfer wants to play for fun. And that's how you're going to get leisurely recreational players out there to enjoy the game.
That's how you grow the sport.
Yeah. And that's where you're going to make the sport accessible, like we were just talking about, to juniors and age protected and just new players who just they haven't developed the distance yet.
100% agree. Like, I've been running a ladies league with my one of my close friends, and we run it in Central Florida. And I'm a big arm, and I really like to play not just the longer pads, but I like to play the longer baskets sometimes, even short pads. But when we go out for the ladies to have fun, we're going to play the short pads and probably the short baskets, maybe mix up the baskets a little bit. But like, I'm just now getting it. And I can admit to that. Like, it took me a second to understand, like, why are we playing shorts? Why are we playing shorts? And it's like, because we want to have fun. We want to enjoy the game. And we can still see that we're getting better even on short pads. Like, no one's going out there and shooting 18 down on the short pads. You're still going to have to throw the shot. You're still going to have to make the putt, and it's going to be fun. It's still going to be a great time. And I'm still learning that and understanding that, but I'm starting to get it.
Yeah. And for a player like yourself who does outthrow most of the players in your area, like, it's a good opportunity for you to see if you can get there with a mid or get there with a putter. Like, you're getting the opportunity to try to disc down. And still, while, maybe a newer player is going to throw a distance driver at that same shot.
And when they start disking down, they're going to get excited about that too, because they're like, oh, well, Kim throws mids on this. I can finally throw a fairway. And maybe I am helping them see that, like, it is, you slowly evolve down. There's one hole at our home course. We're in Daytona here, and there's Reed Canal Park. It's a simple course, definitely beginner level. And there's one hole, and I always joke, like, this hole, I've thrown a distance driver, I've thrown fairway, and I finally, the other day, was able to park it with a mid. And I was like, this is definitely, like, this hole, I can see how I'm doing. This is my get better hole. And maybe one day in the future, I'll be able to throw a putter down here in my eyes. But, like, that growth, that's what we want to see in the sport. That's how we're going to get more people and more ladies in the sport.
Yeah. And I think the holes like that where you can, you have the opportunity to work on different shots, I think is really important for women to see, like, maybe there's that same woman who's throwing a distance driver to that same hole. And you're now just got your mid there, but then you also could have thrown a spike hyzer, with a fairway driver, or you could have tried, your sidearm or something like that. Right. So I think, like, opening up their eyes to, like, the fact that, you can throw different kinds of shots. It doesn't have to just be that one style. Is, and then as you're working it out, like, I don't know for you, like, I know, like, if we're talking about, like, the James Conrads of the world, they're going to be wanting to throw a mid at a shot like that. But then, like, the Simons of the world are going to throw a spike hyzer at that same shot, just because of different style of game.
Definitely. Yeah. It's really interesting how it changes for different people, and how the shorter courses aren't necessarily a bad thing. It makes the game more accessible and then gives you a measuring stick as well as you progress in the game. I have a couple of holes where I'm like, I remember when I was throwing a distance driver and I wasn't making it halfway up the fairway, and now I'm throwing mid ranges and parking it.
Yep. It just makes you feel good. And I would want everybody to experience that feeling of, oh, I can go down. I can go down a disc now. Like I can do it. Like that feeling, I want everyone to experience it. It's one of the best in the game, and that's why this game is so addictive.
Okay, so how about this one? So there's, as you kind of progress through the game, and then, you get a little bit better, and now all of a sudden you don't want to play the short courses, because then this person that doesn't throw as far as you can beat you, right? So
Yep.
we get into a little bit of the spirit of the game here, right?
Yep.
Where it's like, you're like, okay, why does it bother me so much that someone who throws shorter than me, why does that bother me that they might beat me at this course? So why am I don't want to play them on this course because they could possibly beat me, and that hurts my ego. So this is like brings in so many more things about the game and the things that the game can teach you about yourself.
Yes.
And like dealing with your own emotions and being in a place of peace, and allowing others to enjoy their own like accomplishments, not attaching your performance to your own self-worth. Like there's so many things this game can teach you once we get further.
You read my mind.
And Sarah, we really appreciate your perspective on this and taking the time to talk about all these important issues that will affect the game going forward. We wanted to give you some time to promote anything you had going on, next tour stop, this that you want to sell, anything like that. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I love talking about course design, and someday I'm really going to get I'm going to sink my teeth into it and hopefully can do some good things there. In the meantime, I'm happy to talk about it a lot. And, overall, I just want people to just look at the data if you can when it comes to course design and making changes in an FPO layout. Look at the data. We want similar scoring to the men, and then also consulting FPOs or females, not just FPOs, excuse me, females in general when you're talking about, or just the skill set that you're looking for, consulting them a little bit on course design. And then I really got to thank like MVP Disc Sports. They've been, excellent to me for all of these years, as well as Paragon Disc Golf. If you need anything printed, Miles there at Miles Park Hill can hook your club up with some great bag tags and t-shirts and towels. And then Zuka Inc. They have been a great product. They make the carts that just handle everything. And then Mitten Bags up there in Michigan, if you need some dry sack stuff, Mitten Bags is shaped like a hand, and you can make
Like the skate.
affirmations. Yeah, and you can make affirmations with yourself. I like to shake hands with myself when I'm trying to pull myself into different directions mentally. It's my little, it's what I make handshakes with to try to get into the right mind frame. And then also it just so happens to double as a dry handbag. Anyway, I'm rambling now, but I want to thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, and it was great to play those Florida courses this last year, and I'm hoping to see you again this next winter. We can battle a little bit and maybe do a little commentary.
Battle it out at the South Florida Open. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'll be back there. I just need to kind of figure it out. But I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't spend my off season in Florida. It's the absolute best place to be.
Yes, it is. And it doesn't snow here, and it doesn't get cold very often. It's the best.
It's next level off season in Florida.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, you guys have a good night.
Have a great night. That conversation was great. I do not know about you, Evan. I don't know how your brain works, but I am changed, because I was the person who was always like, I want to be rated against guys. Evan, if you shoot 5 down and I shoot 5 down, our rating should be the same. Like, we should be on the long pad, blah, blah, blah. I am changed. I understand now completely where she's coming from and where we should all be going to, like 100%.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because as I've said 100 times, my ball golf background, I'm used to like slogging it out, being really happy with 5 over par and moving on, like take your lumps. And when she's like, yeah, shooting 2 birdies, is that what we're getting excited? 2 birdies in a row, is that what we're getting excited about? And I've been thinking back to when Morgan shot those 2 holes, and she was like super pumped. Like, wow, I guess it should be better for her, because I get frustrated going through that stretch not being 3 birdies in. Like,
Yeah, I'm thinking about this game wrong. I've
mhm.
always thought about disc golf as it's guys and girls, we both play, females, male, we both play. And it's the same, but we just play from a different pad. But truly, this is like I'm going to bring softball back in here. I'm going to drop the softball bomb. This is truly softball and baseball. They have the same idea in theory. We hit the ball, we pitch the ball, the bases, we run the bases, but the game is different.
Mhm.
The game is different. And why aren't we making it better for right now?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we have a lot of people up and coming who are long throwers. Like, I'm one of them. But why aren't we making this for the people now? And then we can grow with it. The whole thing is grow the sport. So why are we not growing the sport? Why are we trying to jump?
Yeah, it's also a dangerous cliff of, well, women in 10 years are going to be throwing 50 feet further. What if they're not?
What if they're not?
What if the juniors don't? Not everyone's going to be AB as a junior. Not everybody's going to be just shredding it. The sport is casual. Not everybody is going to be playing tournaments. Not everybody needs an elite level course. Some people just want to go out there, have fun. So we need to keep that in mind when we're designing courses.
Yeah, this is a great point. And I think I'm going to look at short pads a little differently. I do feel like on some courses, if I'm throwing a putter on almost 75%, 85% of holes, I'm not having fun. I'm not mixing anything up. So in that cases, I do feel like I should play longs. I'm actually like Nature Coast Lua. I do feel like we should have played longs. It's tougher, but I didn't feel like it was too tough. So
Right.
maybe it should have been a modified layout. A lot of the ladies play modified layouts when we go play. Maybe that's the solution a little bit.
Or on those ones where you're throwing from OB and you had to cross in, that doesn't apply for the women, because if the FA1 field cannot do it, like everybody but one girl, that's not fun for most people.
Yeah. Gosh,
Interesting.
I am a changed. I understand. I honestly, we were hopping on this call and I was like, I have so many questions. I wrote down a whole list. I was ready to go. And she answered them one by one. And I was like, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she very well thought out. Well, that wraps it up for today. You can find Sarah on Instagram at Sarah Hokom, Kim at Kim the Great, and me at Evan Amseth DG. Remember to follow the pod on Instagram at Mediocre Disc Golf Pod and on Twitter at Mediocre DG Pod. If you'd like to support us, buy our shirts on mythicdiscgolf.com and listen to us every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you enjoyed the show, leave us 5 stars in a review. And if you didn't, still give us 5 stars and tell us why. We know we aren't perfect because we are mediocre. Have a good night.